Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Showcast, a series of candid conversations from the world of film, brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. And tonight, as usual, we'll be diving into the world of cinema, where the lines between reality and fiction often blur. We'll be joined by a fascinating guest, the talented director Jan-Willem van Ewijk. He's the mind behind the film Alpha, which is making waves at the Giornate degli Autori competition at the 2024 Venice Film Festival. Now, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill adventure flick, folks. Alpha is an existential journey set against the stark, unforgiving beauty of the Alps, and the story centers on a man, a snowboard instructor by trade, who's living in the shadows of those towering peaks when, surprise, surprise, his father shows up. Now, we all know family can be complicated, and this duo is no exception. Tensions simmer, personalities clash, and before long, they find themselves not just navigating the snow, but the rough terrain of their own relationship. And let me tell you, folks, the mountains aren't the only things they'll be colliding with. We're going to dig deep with Jan-Willem about what inspired him to craft this icy tale, one that he wrote himself, by the way. And here's the kicker. The lead actors in Alpha are a real-life father and son. You can bet that adds a whole new level of authenticity and raw emotion to the film. But that's not all. We'll also take a trip down memory lane and explore Jan-Willem's rather unique path to filmmaking. How does a guy go from aeronautics to directing films in some of the most exotic and, let's be honest, challenging locations on Earth? We'll find out tonight. So fire up an audio teeny and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Hello, Jan-Willem. Welcome to the Showcast.
Hello. Glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk with you. At the time of recording, we're fast approaching the premiere of your latest film, Alpha, at the Giornate degli Autori competition of the Venice Film Festival. Are you excited?
I am so excited. This has been such a beautiful surprise. This movie has been selected for the festival. I worked on two movies at the same time, two features. And yeah, it's great that this one in particular is going there.
Usually, Jan-Willem, what I'd like to do is I like to begin our conversation on this podcast series by asking a simple question that I often just like to break the ice with on this podcast series. And that is, what is your earliest memory of cinema?
My earliest memory of cinema, I can answer that one pretty quickly. It was seeing Star Wars in 1977 or 78, I think it was, with my parents in the Palo Alto cinema in California. That made such a huge impact on me. And that's actually what sent me off studying aerospace engineering and becoming an airplane designer before I got into making movies.
Wow. So yeah, that was quite a transition there then from one career to the other. So that was the moment when you started thinking you'd like to become a filmmaker, although, you know, like you said, it also inspired you to do something else before then.
Yeah, I think it subconsciously got me interested into film. I wasn't the kind of person that wanted to make movies all their lives. I had a whole career as an aerospace engineer before I realized, perhaps what I liked about Star Wars was the movie itself and making movies. But yeah, it's definitely been a big inspiration and influence on my filmmaking, seeing that movie. Just
out of curiosity, I mean, the transition between your previous career and your current career, what was that like?
Yeah, I think it was just a huge crisis and a burnout. You know, I was sitting in an office. The reality of that kind of work is that you're in an office all day in a cubicle, and I wanted to be outside. There's lots of like math and calculations and Excel sheets, and I just, I wanted to be more creative again, and I just had a huge burnout, and I think that set me on this journey to think about what I should be doing with my life and then finding film.
Right. And just, from the very beginning, did you have an idea of what type of films you wanted to make?
No, I didn't. I had a friend who said, why don't you start writing a script? And he was a movie director. And he said, write a script and then we'll make it together and you can see if you like making movies. And I had this image of this like hand floating outside the window of a car in the wind. And that was the only thing I saw, and that led me to write a script from there. And before I knew it, I'd written like 100 pages in a couple of weeks, and I knew, okay, I'm going to just buy a camera and make this movie myself with my friends. I'm not going to go back to that director, and that's how it started.
From a personal standpoint, do you feel like there's something cathartic about the process of filmmaking for you.
Yes, absolutely. I love just being on the set, being outside with people. I love filming in nature. It's a fantastic feeling. Yes.
Let's talk about that a little more because, I actually watched your previous film, Atlantic, having watched your latest one too, Alpha. The common trait that stands out to me immediately is the, extreme sporting element out in the open, as you mentioned, actually. In Atlantic, it was windsurfing, and in Alpha, there's a bit of snowboarding, skiing, mountain climbing. What is it that you like about this particular element in your movies? Do you feel like it provides an enriching backdrop to the messages that you want to communicate and the themes that you want to explore?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think my dad was a biologist, and he took our family to California and took me outside a lot. He took me into the mountains, Yosemite, Yellowstone, all this kind of big wilderness that we don't really have back in Holland that much. So I think that really inspired me. And then the extreme sports, I don't know, I had a little brush with death when I was very young. I was in a hospital, and I've always thought maybe that feeling that and wanting to go back there, there's something with extreme sports, being on the edge, being close to death, this intense thrill that I love. Also myself, I'm a snowboarder and a windsurfer. So yeah, I keep looking for that in my movies.
Got you. Well, let's dive into Alpha a bit more. For those unfamiliar with the movie, just very quickly, the brief centers on father and son navigating a strained, troubled relationship in the Swiss Alps, as we said. Their unspoken tensions and underlying bitterness builds up to this power struggle, which takes a dramatic and unexpected turn when they must confront the unforgiving forces of nature. It's just a brief rundown of what happens in the film. I don't want to, spoil too much for viewers who have not seen the film yet, but what was the starting point of this film for you?
Yeah, so I usually write my own screenplays. So this one I wrote completely by myself. The starting point was really the relationship with me and my dad. I love my dad. We're very close. As I said, he took me out as a kid. He's also a very charismatic guy and could be a bit dominant sometimes. And so that duality, I wanted to put that in the script. We both went out skiing a couple of times, and my buddies always used to call him, like laughing, call him the alpha male. And I think that's how I got the title. So this is a movie about my dad and me.
Gotcha. Well, I find it interesting too that the lead actors of this film are father and son in real life. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, absolutely. Gijs is a very well-known actor in Holland, and his son Rijn also has gone into acting and has won a bunch of awards. And I was extremely pleased to hear that they were interested in this film. And as soon as I met Gijs, especially him, because he reminded me so much of my own dad, it was like, okay, yes, let's do this.
So can you tell me a bit more about collaborating with them? You said you wrote this screenplay, and this is a story essentially about your relationship with your father, but do you feel like their real life personalities influence the characters they play in the movie? And do you feel they brought a whole new level of realism to the film and its tensions?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I said I wrote the script myself, but as soon as we started shooting, they brought so many new ideas. They were fantastic. They just got together in the evenings very often before the next day of shooting, and they would come up with new things, rehearse things, improvise things. And so I think the end movie definitely is about me and my dad, but it's also about their relationship. And in fact, they told me it was quite therapeutic for them too, to be together as father and son for like a couple of months. The son being 31, that's sort of usually a time when you spend a lot of time with your dad, or as a parent, spend a lot of time with your children. So that for them was great.
Naturally, this struggle for power, for dominance between the father and son prompts reflections on masculinity itself. Was this another theme that you wanted to explore with Alpha?
Yes, definitely. I think there's definitely something about nature passing things on generation by generation and things changing. So culture coming in there and changing. The nature of masculinity right now is definitely changing in society. I really wanted to comment on that. And I think the son, in a way, has many more feminine characters than the dad. So there's definitely the theme of what masculinity is and what gender is in this film. Yes.
There's also a lot of tension between them, as I talked about earlier, and it seems interesting because I felt like this movie was almost a parable on the nature of relationships and the struggle that we have of communicating with each other, especially after the pandemic. Do you feel that our ability to communicate with each other, even with the people who should be closest to us, and to do so honestly, has become even more challenging than it was before?
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. And maybe that's also why this is a post-pandemic movie. Like, it's definitely there. This trouble of how do we communicate? How do we get together again and not see each other just on screens or listen to each other over the phone? And so this father that visits his son, there's definitely this awkwardness. And I see it around me too, you know, in long-term relationships, fathers, children, but also long-term friends who still have an awkwardness sometimes communicating, especially men, you know, this trouble of opening up and saying things. That's definitely in the movie, yes.
Obviously, coming face to face with something like a natural, let's say, catastrophe, like this moment of extreme force of nature confronting you. Do you feel like, you know, moments like this can be quite life-changing in these situations?
I think for my two characters, it definitely is. I think it's the moment in the film where they are forced to work together, and this quest for survival that ensues is basically brings them much closer together, and all the sort of more neurotic aspects of their relationship and also the worldly aspects of it disappear, and it really comes down to basics. Like, we have to stick together, we have to help each other.
This film obviously was filmed in a location that, to me, it would strike me as one, not the easiest one to make a movie in, to shoot a film in. So what was the filming process like? Is there quite a bit of preparation before you go over there on those mountains to start shooting?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like my movie Atlantic, which was shot on the Atlantic Ocean, we went out 4 miles off the coast to shoot a lot of those scenes. I wanted this movie to be real, and I wanted to really shoot it in the high alpine. So that's all of it's shot above 2,000 meters in the winter in the Slovenian and Swiss Alps. And it was gruesome. It was really intense. I think I really have to thank my producers, Frank Koer, but especially my line producer, Pascal Kleingeld, because usually line producers don't get a lot of credit. But for this movie, she made sure we get up those mountains with ski mobiles or hike, or she made sure that everything was there, safety. And it was just this pretty big operation to send a small crew of like 15, 20 people up the mountain every day. And they did a fantastic job.
Were there any moments where you were like, what am I doing up here? This is too difficult. Or do you have that adventurous side? Is there an adventurous side to your filmmaking that you actually really enjoy?
Yeah, I definitely have an adventurous side, and so did the people that went out with me. My DOP, my cinematographer, Dawa, at a certain point saw this beautiful part of a location that was about 30 meters away from us. And he took an ice axe and just decided to walk there. We told him, like, be careful, but he had just this intense drive. And within seconds, I see him sliding down this really steep slope towards the edge of a cliff, trying to stop himself with the ice axe. And just like a couple of feet before the edge, he caught himself. And so we all got pretty upset with him. We were like, come on, dude, we have like mountain guides here. There's security. And this was this lapse where he just ran out. But that shows the sort of drive and adventurism, I think, of everybody on this crew.
Yeah, whenever I hear stories like that, I instantly reminded of Werner Herzog. You know, films like Fitzcarraldo and those extreme, talk about extreme filmmaking. Those film shoots have become legendary in the history of cinema.
Yes.
And yeah, good old Werner Herzog. So Alpha is about to premiere in Venice at the time of recording, but you mentioned it earlier. You actually shot another film in close proximity in terms of time to Alpha. It's called Atlantica. What's the story with that one? Anything you can share with us about it?
Yeah, so there's the movie I shot right before Alpha is called Pacifica.
I got the wrong ocean. Yeah, Pacifica.
Yeah, exactly. Atlantic was my movie before that. But yeah, people now start mixing them up. The two oceans, yeah. Yeah, so Pacifica, I shot actually 2 months before I shot Alpha. So I had to really run from the United States where we shot that movie to the mountains in the Alps. Pacifica is basically about a father who is struggling with the loss of his daughter through a mass shooting. So it's a quite serious subject, and it looks at the U.S. and their relationships with the relationship with guns. So it's an American road movie.
Gotcha. Well, we'll be watching this space and looking forward to seeing that film as well. But in the meantime, Jan-Willem, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great chatting with you.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of the Showcast from the 2024 Venice Film Festival. And maybe it's got you thinking about those snowy peaks in a whole new light. But if you're a film buff or just someone who loves a good story, we've got plenty more in store for you. Head on over to filmverdictnetwork.com or just search for TFV Network wherever you get your podcasts. There, you'll find a treasure trove of conversations, audio reviews, and much more. Till the next time from the Film Verdict, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.